Good morning. As we listen to this peaceful, let us remember how beautifully the sun rose this morning and the rain that some of us had in the night. With the sound of this bell, let us affirm our humanity and our collective longing for peace. Let us enter, rejoice, and come in with a special attention to the last verse, which is about getting ready for some change. Let us sing together.
Buongiorno, buenos dias, and good morning to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Welcome. I'm Suki Jones, your worship associate today. We extend a warm welcome to all. We're glad you're able to join us and hope you are in good health and in good spirits. We want to stay connected, so please join us for the breakout rooms after the service. This is such a wonderful opportunity to chat in small groups, catching up with old friends, and getting to know congregants you might never have run into before. If you are joining us for the first time, please check out our website for more information about us. That would be at prescottuu.org. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate, spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. We extend our thanks to all who contribute to the presentation of our service today. Heather Knowles for technical support, Mary Lou Prince for musical direction, and today watch for wonderful photos by Norma West throughout the service. Although we are physically apart, we are still in community, and we continue with some of our meetings and activities via internet. During these announcements, remind you that Clark and Nancy Reed McKee are here in town, and details on when to visit with them are in the order of service today. And to find out about our other meetings and activities, check the Weekly Peak, our website, and Reverend Patty's videos for announcements. Please note there will be no children's faith development class today. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. These words are by Deborah Falk. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundation of freedom, reason, and tolerance, a faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that visions a world flourishing with equality for all her people, a faith that demands the living out of goodness, a faith that requires thoughtfulness, a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark of all of this within each of us. May our chalice be a beacon of encouragement. May our faith and our values guide our choices.
Good morning, everyone. We are here once again. We are grateful. I am looking at all of the faces that I can see at this moment. We are grateful for the faces, the familiar faces that we see, and also the new faces that appear here and there. We extend our we this morning to this beautiful earth, some parts of which are burning, some redwoods. We extend our we to the essential workers, some of whom are in this circle, and to all who are experiencing loneliness, grief, and to all of those who may be inexplicably feeling very happy today. Joseph Campbell wrote of the hero's journey, and in these words of the hero path, let us see ourselves. We have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. Where we had thought to travel outward, we will come to the center of our own existence. Where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. We shall be with all the world. As Unitarian Universalists, our first principle guides us to respect the worth and dignity of all. Let us sing, "How could anyone ever tell you?" remembering when we have needed that voice in our ears.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. could anyone ever tell you that you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul, to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul. To my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Let us say our covenant together. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. Now we will hear from Bill Betts, a board member and one of the forces behind the beautification of our buildings. And if you haven't seen that, please go to our buildings and see what is happening. Thank you, Bill.
Good morning. I'm Bill Betts. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees at Granite Peak. I wanted to update you this morning on the ongoing facilities and the safety and security projects underway the last several months. We've added security lights and cameras to the exterior buildings of the sanctuary and faith development. We've added electrical outlets and circuits to the sanctuary to provide more flexibility for function and staff. Faith development, we've added 2 4x4 windows, one on each side, to bring a lot of natural light into those areas. We've also installed a handicap accessible interior door to make it more efficient and effective to move from one area to the other. We've opened the faith development meeting space by removing Ren's office, as she'll be relocating to the main building. Special thanks to several volunteers who painted the kitchen, Davis Hall, new office area, formerly the nursery, and interior and exterior painting of faith development will be completed in the coming months. New irrigation systems and plants have been added behind the sanctuary building, and the Faith Development Children's Garden has been really enhanced by the hard work of the parents and Bev to make this happen. The main office staff will be switching rooms with the nursery as part of this new physical reorganization period. We look forward to inviting you and others to willing to volunteer to help us with these efforts. Be greatly appreciated. We're looking forward to completing these projects, and if you could like to volunteer, contact me, other board members, or anyone in the office area. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Before I ring the bell and we enter into our time of joys and sorrows, I want to echo what Bill said about needing volunteers. Especially, we need people who could take even 20 minutes out of their time, go there anytime you like, and pull some of the weeds that are coming up. You are needed. And in that, that is community, and we are needed as well for all of us. All of us enter this space. We enter the space that is our beautifying building. We enter this space with our lives sitting on our hearts. And I recognize, especially today, as we listen to this bell, all of you and all the joys and sorrows that you are bringing with you today. Let us gather our hearts. Let us take a deep breath together, that oxygen that has been moving through the earth, that has touched the lives of many before it has come to us. Let us breathe in and feel our feet on this earth that in where I am living is breathing a small sigh of relief at the lovely rain that we had. Let us feel the beauty of that rain. During this time of separateness, the joys and sorrows of our life have been more difficult to share. We especially hold the sorrows that are among us now. Let us hold Anne Stevens. She has moved into hospice, and her address has been changed. Her address that is now the address where she is right now is the one that is in our online directory. I invite you to flood her space with cards. I want to see that her room is filled with the love that we feel for her. We also hold Patrick Grady, who is getting better. And we hold Joan Brown, who is so sad right now as she has watched her beloved home of Santa Cruz engulfed in flames. The redwoods, this pain that is the result of climate change. Into our circle, let us remember all those who are experiencing loneliness and isolation. Let us hold all those essential workers throughout the world who are in danger, who are experiencing loneliness. Help them to feel this interconnected web of life. Let us send our compassion for them and our acknowledgement of how interdependent our lives are. Let's give thanks for all those kindnesses that we hear about, for the people who are willing to take the dogs of someone who is moving somewhere where she can't take them. Let us hold the kindness of this community, the passion of this community as we are working towards this time, this very important election, and the movement that is in this world to eradicate racism. Let us hold this movement among us. Let us open our minds and hearts as to the work that is ours to do. Let us take another deep breath together, and into the following silence, I invite you to say the names of any of those on your minds and hearts who are experiencing joy or sorrow at this time. Please join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we are here, recognizing these difficult days, holding the world and holding those beloveds around us. May we find strength. May we be inspired to reach out to people when we have difficulty. May we not feel alone, but feel the accompaniment of this circle. Please be with Ann Stevens. Be with all those parents who are going through the difficulty of childcare and the schooling of children. Bless the children that their hearts may be open to a new way of learning. Bless us all that the barriers that we are experiencing, that we may find a way to dissolve them and move ahead. For all these prayers we give thanks. Amen. And let us sing now together, walking with you. Walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This August, our recipient is Empty Bowls. During this pandemic, our help is needed more than ever to keep the food banks stocked. Learn about the creative way this annual event will continue in this time of social distancing and how you can participate by reading more in your order of service and the newsletter. To give during this distance time, please go to prescottuu.org. On the bottom left-hand side, click the word Donate to contribute. Please note SOS or Pledge in the comment box. The link is also available in the chat on this video. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be. And now enjoy this song created specially for Empty Bowls by Greg and the Gringos.
Do you care enough with your artist touch, or do you walk the streets alone? Come together all, come and share yourself. Please come and help them feel at home. Empty pockets, aching bones, lonely streets and empty souls. You don't have to be alone. Come and fill your empty bowl. When the time is right, send a little light out to a troubled soul. To the least of these you have done to me, please will you make it so? Empty pockets, aching bones, lonely streets and empty souls. You don't have to be alone. Come and fill your empty bowl. We can lend a helping hand. We can be part of the plan. Please come help us take a stand. Do you care enough with your artist touch, Or do you walk the streets alone? Come together all. Come and share yourself. Please come and help and feel at home. Empty pockets, aching bones, lonely streets and empty souls. You don't have to be alone. Come and fill your empty bowls. Empty pockets, aching bones, lonely streets and empty souls. You don't have to be alone. Come and fill your empty bowl.
We will now hear our video interlude, the prayer for travelers, oración para los viajeros.
Prayer for Travelers, Oración para los Viajeros, by the Reverend Angela Herrera, Senior Minister at First Unitarian Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In English. This is a prayer for all the travelers, for the ones who start out in beauty, who fall from grace, who step gingerly looking for the way back, and for those who are born into the margins, who travel from one liminal space to another, crossing boundaries in search of center. This is a prayer for the ones whose births are a passing from darkness to darkness, who all their lives are drawn toward the light and keep moving, and for those whose journeys are a winding road that begins and ends in the same place, though only when the journey is completed do they finally know where they are. For all the travelers, young and old, aching and joyful, weary and full of life, the ones who are here and the ones who are not here, the ones who are like you, and they're all like you, and the ones who are different, for in some ways we each travel alone. This is a prayer for traveling mercies and sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread for your body and spirit, for water for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way. En español, esta oración es para todos los viajeros, para los que comienzan en la belleza y caen de la gracia, quienes caminan tímidamente buscando la manera de volver, y para los que nacen en los márgenes, viajando de un lugar liminal a otro, cruzando fronteras en busca del centro. Es una oración para aquellos cuyo nacimiento es el paso de oscuridad a oscuridad, aquellos que se sienten atraídos por la luz y avanzan hacia ella, y para aquellos cuyas jornadas son un camino sinuoso que comienza y termina en el mismo lugar, aunque solo al terminar sabrán por fin dónde están. Para todos los viajeros, jóvenes y viejos, dolientes y alegres, cansados y llenos de vida, los presentes y los ausentes, los que son como tú y todos son como tú, y los que son distintos, porque de alguna manera todos viajamos solos. Esta es una oración por la misericordia, para que andes con pie firme, y visión clara por el pan para tu cuerpo y tu espíritu, por el agua, para que llegues seguro, y para todos aquellos que encuentres en el camino.
These are challenging times. We are in the middle of a challenging journey. They were challenging times before the pandemic, and now the pandemic has added additional challenges, big ones. And now, looking to the months ahead, the image that came to me and our worship team agreed is a pilgrimage. A road winding and unknown to us, rocky outcrops, perhaps places where the path disappears. Our destination is known. It is the place we left in March, not knowing when we would gather again. Our UUA president says possibly June. My heart in this moment is full of gratitude to you for the way you have stepped up to learning new technology, to gather on Sundays and other times, to keep our community together. Your willingness to make changes and go with a new flow has helped us become a community in new ways. I wish that I could give all of you a badge of courage for coming this far. And I'm sure that Marianne Erickson would have a beautiful design for one. And we could line up and each of us receive our badge. We will need an awards ceremony for all of us when this is over, for the road continues ahead of us. Through what I believe will be called the most important election of our history. So much is at stake. So much is at stake. Many of you are hikers. Some of you have gone up and down the Grand Canyon several times. That means that you have experienced what I have. You have slipped on a pebble or twisted an ankle, hurt a knee on that downward part of the path when gravity is urging us to walk faster than we should. Pilgrims with their heavy backpacks, they know of these dangers and they carry a staff, a stick that can help them over and up and down all kinds of terrains. I began to wonder if our values could provide that steadiness that helps us over the rough road ahead. I wonder how many of you took that evaluation of values that I sent out and have a list now of yours. I have enjoyed this opportunity to define my own values, not just make a list of what I assumed they would be, but try to see them anew. And that's why I took this test. And then look at those words and consider how I am living them out. Mary Lou and I discovered that we share only 3 out of the 10 values, and we get along wonderfully. And I've discovered that sometimes my own values are in conflict. One of my core values, compassion, which I would say is my number 1 value, is sometimes in conflict with my desire to be trustworthy, which is a value essential to my birth family. Someone who was not punctual could not be trusted. So when I don't get into my car with time to spare and I'm driving to church wanting to make up a minute or 2, I can feel compassion flying out the window. My core value leaves at that moment. And I begin to feel annoyed by people who are going slowly, as I sometimes go, or stopped so that I have to go around them and wait till the other cars pass. Usually, this value of compassion wins on these drives. I tell myself that I've done all of those things, that I have gone slowly, that I have stopped, that I have done the stupid thing that the person in front of me is doing. And then after that struggle and I arrive late, then I must search for my core value of compassion to use on myself. I wonder what values you have that struggle against each other. As I looked at the values that emerged, I wondered which ones would help me most right now, in this moment, in this world. All of them play a role. And I think that compassion is my North Star. It's what keeps me standing through these difficult times. This has helped me understand my inner struggle. When I see a neighbor walking by with his red hat that tells of his political alignment, so to speak, I notice that he's having trouble walking, that he must stop to catch his breath. Beautiful morning, we say to each other and move on. And I've seen another neighbor. He's younger, built like a firefighter, and he walks by with the same hat. And Lou and I, passing him on our walk, automatically, in that moment of recognition of what his hat meant, we looked the other way when we passed him on the road. He was in deep conversation with a young woman, and he didn't seem much interested in us. And yet the incident stayed with me, was heavy on my heart. I sometimes wish it weren't. It was heavy because I was not living out my core value of compassion. In my family, not to greet someone, and this was true in our Japanese village, that not to greet someone was not to acknowledge their existence, their humanity. It is an act for me that is contrary to compassion. And my body tells me when I'm not living up to my core values. This pain comes in twinges when I'm not mindful about shopping. When I shop at businesses that do not pay their employees a living wage, or internet businesses over local ones. A few days ago, I was thinking about ordering paints, and I received an email from a big art supply wholesaler about a big sale, and I clicked on the link, and then there I was, happy in the middle of ordering 3 pearl whites, a smalt blue, which I love, and a couple of Prussian blues, and they headed right into my shopping cart. And then the twinge came. I thought of the man who owns the art store and is struggling to stay in business. I listened to the twinge, and I closed up the shopping cart and decided to give him a call. I was going to pay a little more, but my heart was light. I feel good when I take the time to use my financial resources to support small businesses and farms and keep my carbon footprint as small as possible. Perhaps this comes from having a grandfather who owned a bakery that did not survive the influx of Wonder Bread in supermarkets. The value of compassion is key to my connection with the 7th principle. I believe with all of our connection to the 7th principle, our web of life. It is what drives us to find an animal who was rescued, and then, as we all know, rescues us. I believe that listening to my twinges leads to a kind of alignment within me with my values. Compassion is number 1 for me. And I think that comes from my experiences of the opposite, my experiences of being hated. The summer I was 19 years old, I stayed up in Alaska with my aunt and uncle and many cousins, and I worked at the courthouse in Anchorage doing microfilming. I loved the way that sounded like I was a spy, but it was actually a very boring act of using a big microfilm machine and putting all of the court records through. It was extremely boring. And that summer, I met wonderful people, and I thought about staying up in Alaska. There were law interns working at the courthouse from law schools in all parts of the country, and we had lively conversations. And then one day, riding in an elevator in the midst of a conversation, the intern I was talking with figured out that I was LDS. And that was the time when the Mormon Church was the focus of attention because they did not allow Black men to hold the priesthood. Black basketball players, I don't know if those of you who were alive during that time remember those tall basketball players that stood on the side of courts and refused to play the teams of Mormon universities. And with that as a background, when that law intern figured out that I was LDS, she turned away and she never spoke to me again. Only a few years later, when I had the chance to articulate my beliefs about that church with someone who wasn't a member, as I was talking, and they were so curious about those beliefs, as I was talking, I listened to myself. And in some ways, along with all the books that I read, my friends who would listen to me, they listened to me into seeing how beliefs that I received from my birth family, my ancestors, how they did not align with who I was. I wonder if that transformation might have happened that summer in Alaska if someone had had the patience and curiosity to listen. I wonder if you've ever been on the other side. I don't know all of your stories, and I know that some of you have been on the other side. With almost all of us using masks, I go to events and I don't know if you're there because I can only see this much. But last week, I wonder if you were on that ride for change. Lou and I were there. And before we went, we had that twinge of fear. I don't know if you had it, but we did. We were hoping that there would be no violence. We decorated our car and went off on the ride. And as we drove along, several people gave us the thumbs down, putting their big hands out the window and giving us a thumbs down, but nobody shot at us. But you know, those thumbs down felt really bad. Because we are a democracy, and we get to have different opinions. And so do they. Although I don't give a thumbs down to those decorated trucks, and they make my heart squeeze. I think I have a hard time explaining what they make me feel, but they make me feel something that isn't good. And while they're going through town. But I now, after my experience, have a new view of what they might be feeling. You know, all those years ago, after somebody listened me into changing my beliefs or understanding that I didn't believe in the church of my ancestors, I had a huge shift in values, kind of like an earthquake. And when I left my community, the people of my church community acted just like that woman on the elevator. They couldn't listen to what I was thinking or how I had transformed. Neither side could tolerate difference. And I came to believe that we lose great opportunities in not having the compassion to listen and hear each other out. I regret the opportunities that I have lost. One practice that we as Unitarian Universalists have embraced and that has been popular in this congregation are chalice circles. And there are other small groups, such as the men's group and the women's groups, where I think they do the same thing. The purpose is to listen to one another. These circles can provide that kind of time for us to listen not just to others, but when we speak, to listen to ourselves and not feel judged. Because when we listen to ourselves, sometimes we discover that we don't think that way anymore. I wonder if you've ever heard yourself say something that you've said over and over again, perhaps even something your parents have said, and then one day you hear yourself saying it, and it strikes you differently, and you think, I don't believe that anymore. I don't really think that. Because we don't have to keep the values that we grew up with. I think that I think that if Mary Lou and I live in Prescott long enough, and I hope we live here a long time, that there will come a day when we don't see that elderly man who is having trouble walking, that elderly man in his red cap, because he can no longer make that walk around the neighborhood. I've wondered about his values. Certainly one is friendliness. And I would guess perseverance and health, because he shows up for a walk on days he is not very steady. And one day he or his wife will grieve, as Mary Lou and I will one day, as many of you have, at the loss of a beloved. I wonder about that infinitesimal moment, that blink of an eye, that flash, when our values are overridden, like when I'm afraid of being late, or by our desire not to make waves, to have harmony when we hear a racist joke that we want to say something about, but we don't. And then the times when we say something that hurts someone else, or we turn away from people, when we act out of our desire to be right. This is the moment when we can choose to align with our values. And this takes lots of practice and breathing into that moment, expanding it, giving ourselves room to make a choice rather than to react. We hear a lot about natural gifts, and those gifts that we are born with are important. But from all I hear about John Lewis, and saw in the wonderful new documentary about his life, Good Trouble, there were people who were much more gifted orators than he. But there was something about him that made people see him as a leader. I believe that one of his greatest gifts, the gift he brought to the world in his ministry, was alignment with his values. He lived his deepest beliefs. And in his life work, John Lewis found freedom. Aligning with our values liberates us. It might make us skip along that pilgrim path. And if we do fall over, our values will, like a pilgrim's staff, help us get back up. You know, our values don't need to be identical. I bet in all of our congregation, if you fill out that form, I bet you'll find that we have lots of different values. And I have discovered, just yesterday in fact, that I have benefited from the values that Mary Lou and I don't share. For example, she has a value of having fun in life. Think about that. And her value of having fun in any situation has opened up a new world for me. I believe, as some of my values, I hope, have done for her. John Lewis said that his parents gave him the value of fairness, which he kept. He also said that his mother advised him to be particular, which meant to stay quiet. She wanted him to be safe. He was going off to university. And she had that mother's love for him. But John Lewis had a destiny, and he refused to inherit that value. He walked into trouble, what he called good trouble, knowing that he might die. And years later, when a Klansman, one of the group that hit him on the head and hurt him, made him go into the hospital, could have killed him, came to him and asked for forgiveness. And John Lewis forgave him. They said in this documentary that he had a great soul. And this made me think of Mohandas Gandhi, who became Mahatma, a Hindi word meaning great soul. Both of them embodied their values. Could that be what made their souls great? What made them grow? That alignment of their values with the way they lived. I believe that we have an opportunity this year together during this time of some separation to contemplate our values, especially against this backdrop of such division in our neighborhoods, in our country. Could this be a chance for us to grow our souls bigger? Mohandas Gandhi faced apartheid in South Africa, and John Lewis, the Jim Crow South, the civil rights movement of the United States. We have unrest right now in this country, in this state. How will we align ourselves to be part of that? This year, I invite you to take the time to learn what your values are. It might surprise you to take these tests and align them with your everyday life, with those small things you do every day. I invite you to explore what you think with a good friend who will listen, or in a chalice circle, men's or women's group. In our community, let us give our values room to rise to the surface where we can see them. Let us notice when they are nudging us or flooding us with regret. Let us use our values to help us make choices about how to be in our neighborhoods and in this world. I believe that is how we will become what John Lewis describes as a community at peace with itself, as people at peace with themselves. This is my dream for us. Amen, and may it be so. And now let us sing a song for our journey. Wo-ya-ya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will. We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know we're there, we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know we're there, we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will we will get there. We know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going. We'll know we're there. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh yeah, yeah.
May we live into our values and encourage others to do so. May we listen each other into transformation. My prayer for you is for traveling mercies and sure-footedness, for clear vision, for bread for your body and spirit, for water, for your safe arrival, and for everyone you see along the way. Esta es una oración por la misericordia, para que andes con pie firme y visión clara, por el pan, para tu cuerpo y tu espíritu, por el agua, para que llegues seguro, y para todos aquellos que encuentres en el camino. We are traveling together through important history. Let us all work to align with our values, for a change is going to come. Amen, and may it be so. Aligning with our values is a way to become the change that we want to see in the world. It is a way to join this worldwide movement towards liberation. We are going to extinguish our chalice, but before that, I have questions for you that you may perhaps talk together about in the breakout rooms. And I'm going to stay in the main room for anyone who's visiting or anyone who'd just like to talk with me. My questions are these. How do your values bid you act? When do you feel that squeeze, that twinge? That means that you are not aligned with your values. And when do you feel that ease and freedom that comes when your values and actions align? And knowing all of you, I'm sure you have some marvelous questions to add to that. So now let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.